it's a scary thing. The unknown, I think, gets people set up for anxiety because they don't know what to expect. I have a couple of figures I wrote down, and I just wanted to say, so if you had two diseases, okay, one has 28,000 cases and deaths around 2,400. Nobody likes any deaths. But the other one has been as severe as 646,000 cases and 61,000 deaths. I mean, what's more of a concern? The second one.
Right.
That's seasonal flu.
Really?
Seriously, that is like the worldwide impact on seasonal flu that we have all the time. And we have actually already had 92 deaths of children in the U.S.
Really?
But nobody's concerned about that. People don't pay attention, they don't get flu shots, they don't get their kids vaccinated, but yet every year it kills so many people.
Wow.
There's been talk about that maybe we should rename it, because if it had a new name, people
Yeah, it would
be
scare
concerned.
people more.
But that's just wanting to kind of just bring some focus for people to realize, you know, it is definitely something we need to be concerned about. It's a new one. We don't know how it's going to react and how it'll impact our country. I mean, we are already seeing the devastation it's caused in China with the shutting down the country basically, and now it's moved to other European countries. We've had 15 cases so far in the U.S. We've had one in Massachusetts, as we've heard.
There has been?
Yep, there's one. There was a student who had unfortunately had that. Now, that being said, the transmission so far doesn't seem to be quite as severe or of a concern, in that it seems to just be close contacts. What we worry about is that someone could walk through a mall or walk by you and you would get sick.
Yeah, people just start coughing or something.
Right, exactly. But it seems to be more close contacts are the ones that are coming down with the coronavirus.
Okay.
So we're still watching it. It actually has been declared a public health emergency by the United States, but that's more for preparedness. So not for people to get scared or concerned that there's something going on that people haven't told us. We're watching it. What's happening is it's giving funding for hospitals to get prepared.
Okay.
All right. What they're doing is they're dusting off their emergency plans. They're checking their equipment. They want to make sure that they have what they need for when and if it actually comes to the United States. It's probably more of a case of when rather than if, because once it reaches a certain point of cases, then it's very difficult. They're doing the screenings at the airports. They look for temperatures and things, but that only works for people.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Sick. Right.
I mean, what if I don't have a temperature when I walk into the airport, then all of a sudden I'm sitting at the terminal and develop one?
Correct. Or you go home and you develop
Right.
one. So what's happening is that travelers are being asked, if you go home and you become sick, to call. Call your doctor, tell them you've been traveling, call your public health department, say you've been traveling, and what they'll do is they'll ask people to self-isolate. What that means is stay home.
Okay.
Stay in a room if you have other family members and just watch for 14 days to see if you develop more symptoms. Yeah, I know it's a lot, but that's really like the transmission time. So for instance, the one case that we had in Massachusetts, what happened was that people were identified that sat around that one case on the plane. Then local boards of health or would contact those passengers and would ask them to stay isolated for 14 days to watch to see if they developed symptoms. And as far as I know at this point, no one did. So that's really good because that was an actual case. So
So what would people be looking for besides the fever?
The problem is it's flu symptoms.
That's what I
So,
mean.
fever, cough, and right now we're in flu season, so it's very difficult. So what happens is they go over travel history. So if you'd been to Iran, if you'd been to China, if you've been to an area that's been identified as potentially having coronavirus, then special attention would come to that to say, you know, be careful, just watch, just to make sure. And then they would be tested because they can look for the coronavirus. You've heard it's because when they look at the virus, it has kind of a ring around it, or a corona. That's what makes it different than, say, the regular influenza variety, is it has the corona. So it's not the first time. We've had SARS, if you remember.
I do remember
back. We were concerned about that again. You know, it's possible this will become a pandemic, and that just means that it goes through all kinds of countries. Doesn't necessarily speak to the severity of it. Right now, it seems that it's not, the coronavirus is not impacting children. It seems to be older adults. So we have to be careful of that vulnerable population.
Now you mentioned SARS and, you know, how this will become a pandemic and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
SARS, do you even see cases of SARS anymore?
Rarely.
Okay. So it just goes, you know, it gets fizzled out?
Yeah, it's not transmitted to other people, or there's enough people that have had it so that they're not sensitive to it again.
Okay.
There's another coronavirus called MERS. MERS.
Why do I feel like I've heard that?
Middle Eastern.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a coronavirus. That was from bats to camels to people. So the coronavirus is from bats to the pangolin. I had to write it down because pangolin. It's an unusual looking creature, let's put it that way. But it has moved into humans. So now the transmission is human to human. It's droplet, which is pretty large. So it's not like just from breathing. I have to cough or sneeze, and it has to somehow get into your respiratory tract. So it's good hand washing is a prevention. That's what we try to tell people. Yeah, that's right, coughing, covering coughs. If you maintain a 6-foot distance, that's a good thing. So we're hoping that as we're going into weather, people are going to be less congregated.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to be outside doing activities and things like that. So we're hoping that perhaps we'll see a decrease in cases.
And windows will be open and everything,
Right,
so.
right.
Wow,
All those
scary.
things.
But I really think the scariest thing was when you mentioned those numbers. I
Right.
drew myself to think that the second number was the number of the coronavirus.
Right.
But
But
indeed, it's not.
it's not.
It's something that we've all had maybe almost every year of our lives.
Right.
It's the
Right.
flu.
It's the flu. Flu does impact a lot of people. It's not necessarily the flu itself, but how your body is affected. So someone who is very young or someone who's very old, they don't have a strong immune system, so they're more apt to get like secondary effects, so pneumonia. And that's what usually kills people, is the pneumonia versus the flu itself. So what we want to make sure is that we try to protect the most vulnerable, which is why the push is on to, get kids protected. It's hard. Kids don't like shots.
Yeah.
So sometimes parents, they're busy, they just don't seem to get around to it. But the number of 92 children have died so
That's
far.
amazing.
It's huge.